to our November Detachment Board meeting. It's gonna take a while to get used to not saying Police Service Board meeting, but our Detachment Board meeting. We have our agenda that's been circulated and an addendum that's been circulated as well. I'm sure everybody's had a chance to review. The first thing that we're gonna do here right off the hop is the affirmation of office for our newest member, Christine. So we'll get started with that. I think, Spencer, I believe you're going to do that with us. Thanks.
Hey, good morning. I, Christine Stryker, solemnly affirm that I will uphold the Constitution of Canada, which recognizes and affirms Aboriginal and treaty rights of Indigenous peoples, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge my duties as a member of the Brant County OPP Detachment Board, faithfully, impartially, and according to the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019, and any other act and any regulation, rule, or bylaw. Sure. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, it's been officially stamped, so that means we're official. So welcome, Christine, to the group, and looking forward to your contributions. I know there'll be a little bit of a learning curve for you, but we welcome your questions, and anything we can help you with, please let us know. And that brings us to a full complement of 6 people now for our new detachment board, which is great. And we have 3, just to note, we have 3 online today joining us online members, and 3 of us present here in council chambers, along with staff and Inspector Quenville. So without further ado, Spencer has taken attendance already, and we can move into the agenda that's been circulated. Is there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Oh, Member Boudreau. Move to approve. Thank you. Seconded by Member Stryker. We'll get everybody here in the books. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interests at this time? Seeing none. We have no delegations, petitions, or presentations today. So we have our minutes from our first meeting on October 22nd that are in your package. If any errors or omissions? And if not, then we'll have a motion then to approve those minutes, please. Councillor Pierce, thank you for that. Seconded by Member Brown. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any business arising from the minutes that you'd like to discuss now? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our detachment commander's report in pages 11 through 28, and I'll turn that over to Inspector Quenville.
Good morning, Chair Haley and everyone. I'd like to go through the statistics and some of the additional information for this reporting period. As discussed at our last meeting with the new report, while there's a lot of data, I think we all agree there's not value in me going through everything. I will just draw your attention to a few items of note and provide some of the anecdotal information that I have provided in the past. Of note, we had 1 single motor vehicle fatality during this reporting period along the 403. A lone occupant was deceased. Speed was the primary causal factors, so no relevant charges in that situation. Of note, traffic-related charges. You'll note in the charge data for 2024, there is 214 other, demonstrating a 13.8 increase. This is some of the data that I've drawn your attention to in the past in relation to Part 3 charges. Those are some of the more serious driving-related charges. You can see there's quite a few there, and statistically, Brant County leads the area in these Part 3 charges as well. E-ticketing warnings, I know they were of note last meeting. They're down just over 53% for this reporting period. The violent crime incidents, there was an increase year to date of sexual offenses, but again, the value of the numbers, it's an increase of only 1 year to date. So while it reflects 50%, it is an addition of 1 occurrence. Break and enters are up slightly from 6 to 8 over last year, so a 33% increase. Our clearance rates might be another item of interest to you for year to date. They are reflecting for violent crime a 60% clearance rate. Property crime significantly lower than that at 2.4%. Other offenses at 33% clearance rate. So that means where there's been charges laid or a person identified as responsible for the offenses. Provincial statutes, you'll see 100% clearance rate. So that's often our driving related offenses. So it makes sense that that would be 100%. Just when you pull over a driver, then it clears by way of charge or a warning. So that contributes to that stat. So I'm just trying to work through the new report and understanding that there may be different questions arising from some of the data, and just trying to ensure that you have the information that you need on a monthly basis. Mental health occurrences, they're trending slightly lower than we were last year. So at 262 year to date last year, and we're at 234. Still a significant number of occurrences that are occupying officers on the front line. For the month of October, in terms of staffing changes, I did have to return our 2 traffic management officers to platoon as I was facing some staffing pressures, and so those temporary assignments have ended, and the members are supporting frontline calls for service. There are no other staffing changes during this month. There were no public complaints during this reporting period. Specific to the mental health calls, we did have 23 mental health related calls in the month of October. 10 resulted in apprehensions, 9 were admitted, and 1 was released. The total time spent in the emergency room with apprehensions was just over 20 hours times 2 officers. The time ranged from 30 minutes to just about 3.5 hours. PC Murphy is out of the workplace right now, so we have PC Patrick Kobielka filling in that position temporarily until Michelle's return in January. PC Kobielka is also continuing plans for our upcoming Youth Academy. That's scheduled to go ahead this year. He also met with our community service provider, SOAR, and provided Q3 updates and continued liaising with that agency to ensure support for our community members. The Youth School Resource Officer, PC Conrad Vitalis, is filling in that position temporarily. He did provide personal safety training to grade 1 students and also attended the Children's Safety Village and the Paris District High School, so liaising with a number of schools throughout the community. Our Community Service and Media Officer, Jonathan Buchert, is temporarily out of the workplace and will return in January, so I have PC Pamela Novak in the interim position. She has been engaged in a number of community events over this reporting period, including the Burford Fair, the Touch a Truck event, and a bike bus with Sacred Heart. Also engaged in community mental health presentation and a Halloween walk within the county as well. The data for our traffic management unit, as you might suspect, is lower this month, given that I had to return them to platoon. Our year-to-date totals of Part 1 charges, there's 706 Part 1 charges, 208 Part 3, and 5 criminal. I'll also just remind you that Part 3s and criminal were nearly zero year-to-date last year, just the shift in officer experience and utilizing the automatic license plate reader system to identify those more serious charges that I mentioned. Crime Stoppers tips, we had 4 for the month of October. We also, on October 29th, initiated and engaged in a commercial motor vehicle blitz. This was a joint forces operation with members from the OPP, Peel, Hamilton, Halton, MTO, Brantford Police, and the Ministry of Finance. So there was a total of 25 officers engaged here in Brant County. Officers conducted 48 inspections, 11 vehicles taken out of service, which is a 23% out of service rate. 34 charges were laid and 2 plates seized. So overall, a very successful initiative that we look to have more of in the coming months and into next year. That is my report, Chair Haley.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question then as we get our bearings around this new report template. So previously we were able to track the traffic management unit specifically in the old report, but we're not able to do that with the new format of the new report. Is that correct?
I am tracking the data, but it just isn't reflected in that report.
Right, so it's not able to be captured in a specific graphic or it's not in this template. So no one will see this in this template, what we've had before in terms of the traffic management unit statistics.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's open up. I'm sure others have questions as well. Let's open up the floor for some dialogue and some questions about the report. Anybody would like to start? Member Boudreau?
Yeah, likewise, as I orient myself towards the reporting, I was just curious on the daily patrol hours, and in particular the patrol foot, how 80 hours in a given month actually translates. I don't know if that's one person per day for 2 hours, or is that 3 officers sort of blitzing on a weekend, or I'm just trying to get a sense of what that actually translates to on the street.
Through you, Chair, that could be one officer doing a half hour today. It could be 2 officers doing 3 hours tomorrow. It's just captured through their daily activity reports where they track foot patrol, and then they would indicate as low as a quarter hour and as long as they do it for. So it's just a cumulative number throughout the month of foot patrol throughout the county. So yeah, there's no specific breakdown.
All right, and through you, Chair, as a follow-up to that, is there a breakdown just in the sense of location? So was it downtown Paris? Was it St. George? Was it Burford, et cetera? Do we get any sense for that?
Through you, Chair Haley, that would have been captured in their daily activity report. When we enter that information, we have to include the duty location. So to your point, whether it was in Paris, whether it was in St. George. So yes, that information is captured within the system, but as a single tier municipality, it's reflected as the whole county.
Okay. Yeah, and my questioning, and maybe you can give your thoughts on it, is when I get asked by other citizens, or told is probably a better phrase, I don't see the OPP anymore, i.e. either in patrol or on foot, other than on the 400 series. I'm just looking for a way that we can respond in more concrete details than they're everywhere. So that's really what I'm trying to get to.
Through you, Chair Haley. So that's a tricky question that we're certainly always faced with, and the data there reflects the general patrol, so the time that cruisers are traveling the roadways, in addition to traveling to and from calls for service. So if there's a specific area or concern, then certainly worth noting that the member of the public call in, because to see an officer go by, like the chances of that are rare, I guess, if we're just looking out our window. But certainly we're out there, and you can see the the patrol hours reflect that. But if there's something more specific, then I was happy to address that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
To follow up on Member Boudreau's question, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to recall, in the old report format, did we track by zones?
Through you, Chair Haley, yes, we did.
Okay, so the new template for all the OPP detachment boards is this new format, and so we've gone to different ways of collecting and reporting the data. So I guess that's the challenge: is how do we still maintain some of that local, information or data points that you can, work from. I don't know the answer. Unless you, go ahead.
Chair Haley, I just wonder if there's an opportunity. I think you mentioned in the past that you were part of a committee to provide feedback on the report. If that would be something that you could share as an area of concern for sharing with the community.
Yeah, that's a good point, because my understanding is this is going to change again. This template is changing again to reflect all the data capture that they're doing with the new act and how they're going to build their action plans and their reporting. So this will likely change again for us. I don't know when. They don't know when they're rolling that out yet, but that's a good point. I'll raise that then as well. Any other questions? Yep, Member Stryker.
I just had a question about the
Sorry, Member Stryker, you just have to push your button on so the folks online can hear you as well. It'll go green on your microphone. There you go.
Thank you. So about the mental health calls that you reported on, is there a way to find out where those incidents happened, whether they were in group homes or private residence or out in the public, or is that something else that would be helpful, whether it was one person who was had multiple calls?
Through you, Chair Haley, I'd have to consider that, because we're very cognizant of maintaining someone's privacy and not getting into too many details that would shed a light on who we might be talking about. I'd have to look at the nature of it, and there may be an opportunity to just comment on, to your point, whether they were all at residences versus, but yeah, I'd be cautious about talking about group homes and things like that, to not identify anybody, if that makes sense.
Anybody online have any questions? Member Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the inspector, I have a couple of questions. Since the report that we're receiving now is going to be adjusted in some manner, I think we're a little bit out of the norm for some of them that we have the contract for the traffic management unit. Can that either be incorporated into the report since we have the additional services? And if not, can we have a supplemental being provided to us on that, much like you did today on a monthly basis?
Through you, Chair Haley, it is my intention, Member Brown, to continue to provide updates as I did today. So while they don't appear in the statistical data that is provided to you, yeah, it is. I will continue to provide updates. As I said, they have been returned to platoon right now, so you can expect that for November and December, there won't be any data to report on until the new year when the new people return to those positions.
Okay, thank you. And again, Madam Chair, through you to the inspector. The last few times I've been out in the Burford area, I've had comments about ATVs and not seeing any enforcement on them in the recent past. They are a concern and people are afraid to report for fear of retribution. I noticed this month that we have 0 hours. Is that something that we can check on? I don't expect an answer from you right now, but if it's something that we can just make the patrols, our platoons, aware of.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I will follow up on that, Member Brown. I know in the recent past, part of the challenges was members trained for operating the ATVs. So that was something that organizationally they were working on getting those courses going. So I will follow up at the next meeting if that's acceptable.
Thank you. And lastly, on page 23 of your report, you made a reference to 23 provincial or POAs tickets. Are you able to advise, if not specifically those ones, but what type of tickets those would be, what they're for, and
through you, Madam Chair, no, I would have to do some research on that. I don't know that.
I'd be interested in just knowing what type of interactions that we are having, good, bad, or indifferent. And that shows a fairly significant increase over the previous months. And again, it may just be the new report that's catching it that we haven't seen before.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, it could very well be the new report as you indicated, but I will follow up on that.
Thank you.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, first of all, I want to say I'm glad we're getting a lot of questions on this report. I'm glad I'm not the only one, so thank you to committee for that. Most of my questions have been answered, but just a couple follow-ups if I could. So I just want to confirm what you stated, Inspector, regarding the traffic management officers there. So did I hear correctly? You say you pulled them off of traffic management and they're back on front line. So as of this point in time, there is nobody covering the position of the traffic management?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, that's interesting because it's my understanding that that was a specific, the payment was up for that specific position. So I'd be interested to understand how that's all going to work out. As far as the new report, as I said last meeting, I love it in the sense that when we talk about a 50% increase or a 50% decrease or something like that, you actually have the, what the numbers were previously to the numbers now, which it just adds that important context rather than somebody just seeing a 50% reduction. So thank you on that. I know the report is apparently going to be slightly changed again. And I'm just wondering, as far as the supplemental information that's no longer provided as part of this report, I'm curious if it's possible for us to get that information as part of our package so we can kind of see it beforehand in the meeting, and then I understand you kind of speak to it, but it'd be nice to have that on the agenda as well if that's possible. But other than that, Madam Chair, believe it or not, I have no other questions. They've all been answered.
Through you, Madam Chair, to your point, Councillor Pierce, in relation to the traffic management unit, what the OPP does historically is they review, let me backtrack. They know the two individuals that are assigned to that position for the year. So when they see they're not fulfilling those duties, the expense is credited back to the municipality. So you don't continue to pay for it when they're not in those positions to that point. So I have a duty to provide adequate and effective frontline policing, and due to different staffing pressures that I was facing, I had to make a decision to ensure that the platoons had sufficient staffing. So that was the reason for my decision. Believe me, I thought long and hard about it, understanding the interest in the community about traffic safety, but I do need to ensure that I have sufficient members to respond to calls for service. So the municipality will be credited back those funds. And to your second point, in relation to the information that I'm going to continually to provide updates on, in the spirit of consistency, I think the reason for this report is not for me to continue to add to it. I think that's what was happening around the province. is everybody was continuing to add, and we had very different reports from municipality to municipality. So I will have to seek input on whether I provide it ahead of time as you've requested. I do have a meeting next week with all the detachment commanders in the province, so I suspect that this will be a topic of discussion. So I might be able to provide some more insight after that meeting if that's acceptable.
Appreciate that. I'll leave it in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just as a follow-up then, Inspector Quenville, you expect the pressures and the traffic management unit then would be back up and running for January with the new, got new people coming into those positions?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's my plan. I will have to continue to evaluate it. Certainly going into the winter months, the calls for service decrease. We hadn't seen what we historically experience in the fall. There's often a significant drop in calls for service in the fall. We did not experience that this year. Calls for service stayed somewhat higher than usual. So in order to have sufficient frontline members, that was the reason, and then some staffing challenges as well. So I do anticipate the 2 TMU officers returning January 1st.
That is the challenge of juggling all the different pieces, I guess, of everything. That's any other questions on the detachment commander's report and the statistics that are in this report? I will, as Inspector suggested, I will follow up with this OPP focus group with the notion of how do we get a little bit more local flavor to our data to be able to discuss that. I'll bring that up as well. And Councillor Pierce, to your point about some of the additional information that is really good insight and context. I guess that's my concern as well, is if we share and read just the statistical report here, we lose, I guess, some of the ability to have the context and have some of that information. And so how do we as a board manage that? And I don't have the answer, but I guess I know your concern as well, that we want to make sure that the right information is getting out as well. Reading numbers is one thing, but being able to have the context to go with it is important as well. So I note that as well with you, Councillor Pierce. All right, if there's no other questions, no other discussion points for Inspector Quenville, then we will have a motion to receive the detachment commander's report and statistics for information. Mayor Bailey has put that forward and seconded by Member Boudreau. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have some staff reports now to go through. The first one is 9.1, which was in your addendum that was sent out. And this is, I guess my opening comments will be that I think the intention from our last meeting to today is to start the process of the budget discussions. Under the new CSPA, our responsibility is to provide an estimate of what we as a board will require or feel we need. And then, of course, that would go to council for their budget process. My hope today is that we can discuss and brainstorm and give us some time to consider, and then we'll call a meeting in December for that approval process. And when I was reviewing some of the notes that Cindy had prepared, some of you were on the former police service board when we discussed this. A couple of years ago, we gave some consideration to, like, strategically, what is it we want to accomplish? What is it we were trying to do? And I believe we kind of came up with a couple of priorities, and communications being the primary goal or strategic direction. And we kind of divided that into internal and external. And we looked at internally, we wanted to make sure we had good communications with council, good communications with the county and staff and all of that, repair some bridges, And then externally, we wanted to really look at community engagement and improving communications with community members. And when I look at some of the work that we're doing now and some of the work that I think that we would like to do in the future, I wonder if those strategic directions are still relevant today. But there may be other ones we want to consider as well with the path moving forward. So keep all that in mind, I guess, when we have Cindy here present what she's put together as a starting point. I guess, is that fair to say, a starting point for discussion, and then we can go from there. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy so that she can present the report, and then we can open up the floor for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to members of the board. So the intent of the report and the presentation today is to provide the new board with an opportunity to discuss the priorities that you'd like to focus on in 2025, as well as look at the budget structure. And as Chair Haley mentioned, it's proposed that following the discussion today and direction provided to staff, that staff can come back at a meeting in December with a final draft for the 2025 budget. So this report provides the new board with a template budget that's based on the previous Police Service Board's budget structure. The base budget that is attached in the report does include the new budget structure in terms of our additional community representative and the honorariums associated with that. And it also includes the new requirement for the board to have its own individual insurance policy. In looking at the budget for 2025, the board may want to consider some funding to reflect the additional member in terms of training and development priorities for next year, as well as potentially traveling expenses associated with that. And one other point I wanted to point out about the structure is that in talking with county finance, there's a couple of things that the corporation does in terms of accounting. We do separate out postage costs as its own line item. So if the board would like to, in 2025, continue with the dispatch newsletter, that could be separated out specifically, as well as traveling expenses in terms of hotel accommodations, 407 fees, mileage that might be associated with conferences. Right now, that all is accounted for in the training and development account. But just in terms of good accounting, it might be a good idea to separate that out, and therefore it's tracked more specifically there. So the base budget structure is there, but it really doesn't capture what it's totally based on the previous board, and so it's not really capturing what the new board may want to focus on in 2025, and so that's really the direction that staff is looking for today, is to get some direction on would the new board like to continue with items such as the newsletter. There were some other initiatives that the previous board was involved with as well. The previous board did contribute towards an annual golf tournament. There was also contributions towards things like the Youth Academy and other pieces of engagement. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Chair Haley to lead that discussion.
Great. Thank you very much, Cindy. So if I understand right, then this is the starting point from which we would then launch from. I do like your suggestion of breaking out the postage separate from the printing of the dispatch, just so that we have a better idea of what that might be. For the benefit of our new members, some of the things that we would have potentially supported in the past. For the past couple of years, the Brant OPP Detachment runs a golf tournament in support of the Safe Beds program in Brant. And so we've provided, well, some of us have golfed, but we've also as a board provided a donation towards those efforts. And they've continually raised over $10,000 towards the Safe Beds program every year, which is run by the Canadian Mental Health Association. We have also, in the past couple of years, done some barbecues at the detachment for each of the platoons to be able to engage with the members at the platoon and be able to interact with them. We have supported the Youth Academy, the first Youth Academy last year, which went over really well. And as we heard today, there's plans for the next one in the new year. So we supported that with some support. And then I think there's some other things that we've done. We previous to me, the board would have done a Christmas breakfast type of opportunity with the detachment, but we moved to doing a token Christmas holiday token acknowledgement for each of the members rather than one breakfast that only certain people could maybe attend. So we've done that for the past couple of years as a recognition. And then I think there's been the odd thing come through the board in terms of support for Special Olympics in the past. And we know that 2025 we're hosting the Special Olympics in Brantford in Six Nations. Trying to think, Member Brown or any of the others, if there's any other, just for the education of our new members, what we might have supported in the past. But those are some of the initiatives. And I think some of the things that we've discussed as well is how can we support that community engagement, those types of pieces. And that's where the dispatch newsletter has been an initiative for the past couple of years in terms of getting out to the community. It's a larger expense, but it's a good communication piece in terms of that. Yeah, so I'll open up the floor for anything in terms of questions or suggestions, directions, anything that anybody would like to have clarified. Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you, I think first off, I think you kind of hit pretty much all the points of what we've done in previous years. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel here. I think we've all kind of, we've got the mindset of making those choices in the past few years, and I would be more than happy to stay with those unless some other ones come up. That's fine. Couple of questions I do have on the proposed budget sheet, though, if I could just ask through you to Cindy. So as far as the splitting out the newsletter and stuff like that, so that is right now I'm trying to understand what is under the public relations / awards, because if you look historically in 2022 it was 8,700 actual, and then 2023 it went to 22,000 actual, and then now we're back down to below 10. Can you refresh my memory as to A, why it was so high in 2023, and B, what's changed? Because unless we do something really major, unless the newsletter is in there, then that's good. We're going to be way below the 25,000 for 2024. Start with that.
Yeah, through Chair Haley. Good questions, Councillor Pierce. So under the actuals, I'm not too familiar with 2022, but in 2023, I understand that year we locally hosted an OAPSB meeting, which was not anticipated in the original budget. So I think that's where a lot of that overage is coming from.
Okay.
In 2024, we have not published the second newsletter yet. It is ready to go, and we're just waiting for Canada Post to come back online. So once that does get expensed, that's going to be probably around $9,000 added to that line. So that's where sort of the bulk of where you'll see the numbers for this year.
Okay, so that the newsletter is included within that line. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess the only other is as far as the insurance premiums. So it's my understanding that really we didn't have to start paying our own insurance until was almost May, wasn't it? So I'm just curious as to why that's so high. If it's only really for half the year, and then next year we've only budgeted $80 more for the entire year.
Yeah, through Chair Haley, the insurance premium, they charge the amount up front for the full year. So in September, we paid, or the board paid the $39.20, and that was for a full year of insurance. And so in 2025, we're just estimating that it'll likely go up slightly.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. So let me see if I understood that. So you're telling me we didn't pay until September, yet we had to pay for the previous 8 months when we had no insurance?
Through the chair, the county's insurance previously covered the Police Services Board for insurance.
Right.
Technically, there was no insurance in place until the fall of this year, and the full premium was paid up front. So it would provide insurance from September until the end of August of 2025.
Okay.
And then the new premium the board would pay next September, which would cover insurance from, September 2025 until August of 2026.
Okay, so I think there's the confusion there. So there's an overlap year to year of the insurance coverage, yet in the budget it's all in the same year. So I think maybe for clarification, for ease of clarification, maybe we could adjust that. I don't know if I'm being too picky, but as I say, that the way you explain that's fine. So technically, that $3,900 is we'll pay our insurance through till August of 2025. And then the next one will kick in. So again, it's just we're not technically paying that much in 2024. We are paying that in 2024, but that's not technically for the 2024 insurance because that kind of bleeds into 2025. Am I confusing things, or do you understand where I'm coming from?
Through the chair, I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
but I'm not sure from an accounting perspective if we can set it up any differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's okay. All right. No, that's fine. But no, like I say, Madam Chair, I think I'm an advocate of the newsletter. I think it's very important. I think there's a lot of good information to it. I think we're kind of, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Canada Post. It should be interesting to see if they're even back this year. So that could definitely change things. The golf tournament, of course, because we definitely, I'm in full support of supporting that cause. Unfortunately, we couldn't make the donation this year. Youth Academy, absolutely. The barbecues for our frontline folks, absolutely, and staff for sure. And the Christmas token that we've been doing, I think that's the least we can do. And 100% on the Special Olympics coming up, I would like to see something from Police Services Board for that as well, if we could. But other than that, that's kind of my thoughts around it. I like our starting point here, and I think we can only go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Pierce. And just for clarification or for note, just to make sure everybody's aware, the fall winter, I guess we're calling it the fall winter. It's probably gonna be winter. Newsletter is done. It's county staff have done a wonderful job laying it out and designing it. Inspector Quenville's team have done a great job with content. It's ready to go. We just need Canada Post to get resolved, and then it can get out hopefully before Christmas. But if not, it's ready. It's ready whenever it's. Yeah, so we've had one this year. To your point in the budget, we've had one newsletter this year, and if I understand you correctly, then Cindy, that's approximately $9,000 an issue for postage and printing. Okay.
Yes, between both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor Bailey, you had your hand up. Yes.
Yeah, through the chair to, I think, to the inspector, but maybe to Cindy. Are we still taking part in the crosswalk cinema thing with the kids?
Oh, the safety patrol year end.
Yeah, the acknowledgement for the safety patrollers that we usually do at the cinemas.
Through you, Madam Chair, I know we were engaged in the crosswalk program, but I'm not familiar with what you're speaking of, Mr. Mayor. That hasn't happened since I've been here. I know we were re-engaged with the crosswalk program this year because there was a gap and risk management part that the organization was reviewing, but I'm not aware of the acknowledgement piece that you're speaking of, sir.
Okay, for about 10 years, we joined with the city of Brantford, and both the mayors went, and we took all the kids to the Cinema 3 there, and got pictures taken and gave them awards and gave them whatever show was playing or whatever show they wanted to see. But I didn't remember it happening in the last couple of years, but we did do it for a very long time, and it was a great event. So
yeah, I believe Mayor Bailey, I agree. I recall before COVID, for sure there was I guess all the safety patrol, bus monitors, kids that volunteer to be the safety patrol. I don't even know if that program is, and I believe CAA was part of the sponsoring of that as well. I'm not sure, but yeah, they would go to the movie theater. All those kids from all the schools would go and get acknowledged for their volunteer contribution for the year. But I don't believe there's been anything that I'm aware of since COVID. Mayor Bailey, do you know that there's been anything in Brantford?
no, but I'll call Brantford and find out from staff there what they're thinking or how anxious they are to doing it again. It really was a good event, and the kids all sat in different groups, and it was a cheering event, and we got them all excited, and they really did like the competition. I think it was a really good thing for us to do, just to thank them for what they did. So I'll reach out to the city.
That'd be great. I guess the other question I would have for the group is there anything that we would like to consider with respect to community safety in each of the different zones? You know, we made a decision last meeting regarding the community safety groups. Is there anything that we want to, and maybe that's a question that we need to talk to Inspector Quenville about as well, in terms of if there's any kind of community safety messaging or opportunity for engagement in the community, in the various communities, wherever they are, on anything in particular, then maybe there's an opportunity there for some communication initiatives, because we said we were going to keep doing that and enhancing that. I'm not going to put you on the spot right now, but maybe that's something that we can consider and to forward that to Cindy to include for consideration. I know some other communities, just through their social posts, they do some work on the community safety messaging. Maybe it's impaired driving that, you know, we want to target, or there might be another community safety message that we want to target, and they do different signage to alert people to different messages. So there might be some best practices in other communities in terms of what they do that we can maybe look at what's effective, what might work, or help us with some of the work that we're doing. I noted, Cindy, you also suggested that perhaps training should be adjusted with having an additional, we have 6 members now rather than 5, and the opportunity for folks to attend the OAPSB conference, where there's training as well, or there may be other training opportunities that come up through the year. Did you have a thought as to what that might be increased to potentially, or?
Yeah, through the chair. I'm looking at the 2024 actuals, and it does look like there's a bit of money underspent this year, which is maybe reflective of the fact that it's been an unusual year. And we likely didn't have the same participation maybe that we normally would. So I think that, you know, we might want to look at maybe adding another $1,000, because that would probably allow a member to attend an additional conference next year, but then would need to adjust the traveling expenses as well to coincide with that.
Just checking to see if anybody had any comments on that. I think that makes sense. I mean, to at least review it. Member Boudreau?
Yeah, it's more of a general question, but somewhat related, because clearly at this point in time, it looks like we're going to very much underspend what our budget was. So what I don't know is this a spend it or lose it, or is there a carry forward approach that historically would have been the case for the board? Because I know some funds would have historically come obviously from the county, but other funds would have come from the sale of merchandise that was found and not claimed, et cetera. So maybe I just get a clarification on what happens to the funds that we don't spend in any given year. Does that get carried forward to the next year? Thank you.
I'll let Cindy answer that for us.
Yeah, through the chair. So the operating budget that you see here does not carry forward. So if funds are not spent, they're not carried over. There is a reserve that the previous board built up through sales. It's just over $7,000, I believe. So that money does carry forward if it's not spent. There has been a change, which I just discovered in the new act, around how that money is handled just in terms of the revenue from the sales. It's going into a general revenue fund for the province, I believe, rather than back to the local boards. But that reserve is sitting there right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take an opportunity then just to highlight that what Cindy just noted, just so everybody's aware and on the same page. So previously, any of the property that was sold by the OPP, the monies were transferred to the county and put into this reserve fund for the board's decision on how to allocate. And that rolls over every year, so we don't have to spend it or lose it. When Cindy and Inspector Quenville and I were discussing, just preparing for the meeting today, Cindy found in the new CSPA, the new Community Safety Policing Act, a clause that outlined that detachment boards, the sale of property would go to a consolidated revenue account with the commissioner of the OPP, which is a change. Municipal police service boards would continue to be able to retain the way that they have been in the past. So this is another change that nobody saw before. There's been a lot of these little nuggets in this new act that have really impacted the OPP detachment boards in such a different way. And for us in Brant, we are a single tier, and we didn't have any changes other than a new member come along. Other communities had to merge and had to consolidate, and they had many police service boards for many different communities, but under one detachment, because they had a different layer of municipal government. So they had to merge. So I can see where some of this stuff has, makes sense for some of those merging situations. But for organizations like ours, as a single tier, nothing really changed for us, and yet it seems like we're bearing the brunt of a lot of these things. So I have reached out to the OAPSB to see why this change, because that means anything that's seized locally and sold locally will no longer stay locally. It will go into the general revenue account of the Ministry of Finance, and somehow that gets allocated to whatever, but it won't stay locally. And that I don't think is right. And I don't know what the thought process is behind that. I understand the OPP is obviously part of the provincial government, and there's probably some things along that line with the Treasury Board and whatnot, but why change this process that we've had all this time? And we're not talking about large sums of money. So why would we not be able to still allocate that to local initiatives and local projects? So hopefully we get some discussion or some resolution on that, but the way the act is currently read, there will be no more funds come to our board from the sale of property, which is unfortunate. Cindy?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on one of the comments by Member Boudreau about where we'll be at the end of this year. And I do believe the board is trending to be at budget by the end of the year, if the newsletter does go out, as well as payment of the remainder of the honorariums for this year. The board will be at budget this year. Noting that the insurance premium was an unexpected expense for this year. And so the public relations and awards really are reflective of the two newsletters that were issued and not much else. There was some contribution towards the Youth Academy, but that was really it for 2024, given the circumstances of what was happening with the board and the transition. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
We had plans.
Yes.
We had plans to do other things until we were, what's the right word? Disbanded, yeah, dissolved, whatever, at the end of March. Yes. Question for you, Cindy, about later on in our package, we have an invoice from OAPSB for membership. Is the membership line item, membership and subscriptions for 2024, and then what we're proposing for 2025, will that include the OAPSB membership? And is there other typically memberships that we would, or subscriptions that we would be responsible for as well? Because I do know that it is an increase, so I just wanted to make sure that we.
Yeah. This number for 2025 is the OAPSB fee. And I did review the fee with finance. We do get a break on taxes. So the $3,500 would cover the new fee for next year. There have not been, to my knowledge, any other memberships or subscriptions from the previous board.
So I guess it's a little bit preliminary, but our invoice that we have today to consider is really not that far off of what we've already paid for last year then.
It's very close.
Okay. Member Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair, to yourself and to Cindy. Cindy, you mentioned the training and travel budget may be going up $1,000. I had sent something to Chair Haley in the event that I wasn't here. But we have 2 new members, and hopefully that means we're going to have more participation in the conferences and whatnot. My thought process would be that it might be more appropriate to go up to about $7,500. We don't know what we're going to be doing with next year with the implementation of the new act and all of the changes or best practices that we can obtain from them. I'd rather be a little bit on the heavier side on that than the light side if we can benefit from it as a board.
Cindy?
Through Chair Haley, certainly I can bring that back in the final budget, reflective of a little bit more support there in the training and development line.
So we've got some really good feedback
And
here.
Madam Chair,
sorry,
yeah, although consistent with Councillor Pierce's comments, I think all of the initiatives that we've done in the past have paid off and are beneficial to all concerned. I'd like to see us continue with those. It'd be appropriate maybe if we could give to Cindy and yourself for the next meeting any ideas and justification for anything new, because we are changing both in the act and also with the groups. I'd like any ideas from Inspector Quimble on if there's anything she could see that may be of benefit from us as a board that we would be able to consider at the same time.
Thanks, Member Brown. So I guess what I would ask Cindy then is we've had some discussion and what we think we'd like to do. We don't know what that looks like in terms of the final number, but is it possible then that we can, we'll also consult with Inspector Quenville and perhaps maybe bring back a budget at the next meeting that maybe is itemized with each of those things so everybody can see, rather than rolling them up. We can, for our purposes, we can show them itemized so everybody can kind of see what we're looking at. And I know that they'll be rolled up under certain headings for the accounting purposes. And then that will give us time to consider ahead of the next meeting. And then we can then go from there. Member Boudreau?
Yeah, just related to that, and maybe can come at the same time, but when somebody referenced Christmas token, I'm going, I like Christmas. I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds nice. So even just a better understanding about what some of these are in a bit more detail, including what the per officer price would be, or if it's a golf tournament we support, then historically what has been the contribution. The other thing I'm interested in as it relates to things like the golf tournament and some of the other community events is an understanding of whether the county or by extension, other boards of the county are likewise supporting that same effort. And what I'm thinking of is we all too often hear the term government funding, when the reality is there's usually very little government funding, but there's a whole bunch of taxpayer funding that goes on. So I'm just trying to understand what's the all-up contribution that might be made by the county all-up as opposed to our individual board, and understand how that relates to some of the other funding. Thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely put the context around, especially with new members. It's important that everybody's on the same page of understanding. So it's definitely some context around each of those items and some background. The piece about the other funding, I'm going to lean on Cindy, because that's something we'd have to look into and figure out. But that's a good question. Some of that will be really easy to answer, and some of it might be just a little bit more investigation. So if that's good with everybody, then we will. We don't need a motion for this at this time, do we? Okay, Spencer's got me all organized. Sorry about that. I just had to find the right page. So there is a suggested motion that we could do here to give us some direction. And that would be that we receive the report from Cindy as information, and that the board provide some direction to staff regarding the 2025 budget structure and priorities for inclusion in presentation of the final draft for our next meeting. Does that make sense? Is someone willing to? Oh, Councillor Pierce, question?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Just a clarification. So you're suggesting that the direction to staff, is that to come, or is that the conversation we just had up to this point? Like I'm curious.
Sure.
If if we go away and all of a sudden a week down the road we think, oh, you know what, maybe we want to do this or maybe we want to do that. How do we get that to Cindy, or is it just with the conversations that we've had right now, things we just got?
If I could start, and then if anybody wants to clarify, my thought process, Councillor Pierce, would be that some of the discussion we've had here today has given Cindy some direction in terms of the path forward, what that could look like for the proposed budget estimate, but also that we provide an opportunity for Inspector Quenville and Cindy to also chat to make sure that we have considered, make sure that there's anything else that needs to be considered can be put on the slate, and then that comes back to us for review and discussion and whatever that looks like in terms of the approval process.
Okay, if I could, Madam Chair, so does that mean that if any committee member between now and then thinks of something, we just wait till that meeting, or do we shoot it in to you or to Cindy, or how does that go?
I think to make things efficient for our December meeting, because my understanding from Cindy is that we have to approve something in December in order for it to get into the council's budget process for early January. So we have to have something approved for December. So I would hate to see somebody come to a meeting with an idea and then not get the time that it could need if because of the timelines that we have. So if there is something that a committee member has, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but if we set some timelines, Cindy, say in the next week and a half or something, we'll figure out a better timeline. But just a suggestion that if a committee member has anything that they'd like to prioritize, that they send it to Cindy and myself, and then we can get it into the process, because we need to be able to publish this ahead of time as well for whenever we are going to pick a next meeting date, to be able to get this all in wrapped up. Cindy, I'll let you.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that that would work. Noting that because of the new timelines, we would need to receive that information likely in the next week or two. And I can follow up to everybody just with the deadline on that, so that you're aware of when to submit any other thoughts that you might have that I can incorporate in the next report.
Right. And one final one, if I could, Madam Chair, and I like that idea. Is it possible that, if somebody is forwarding something to yourself and Cindy, that they could just CC the rest of us, so we're aware of it prior to that meeting as well, just so we don't, I don't want to say waste time in the meeting, but we're prepared coming into the meeting with any potential additions.
That sounds good. The context and the information behind it.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to Cindy, then instead of me going to the city, then maybe you could go to the city about the crossing guards. That way you'll get a yes or a no very quickly, and we won't waste time, and timelines won't be lost. Thanks.
Yeah, that's no problem, Mayor Bailey.
Okay, so we have we've had some good discussion. I think we have a process then. We've given some direction to Cindy so far. And then we have an opportunity here for everybody to think about anything else additionally that we would like to consider, including Inspector Quenville and other members. Cindy will let us know what that timeline looks like in the next week or so for those submissions. And then we'll prepare a more itemized budget under the various account headings for everybody's consideration in December. So we can get that approved here and requested as part of the county's budget process. Does that sound appropriate? So back to then to our motion then to wrap this up. We would need then that motion to receive the report that Cindy presented for information, and then I guess we need to modify this slightly that we provide direction to staff to bring a 2025 itemized budget back to the board for review and approval, and that board members who have items for consideration would do so within the next week to be included in that presentation. Is someone willing to make that a motion then? Member Brown, and seconded by Member Boudreau. Any other discussion on that? Okay, that's great. Let's call the question. All those in favor of that? And that's carried. Thanks, everyone. That was a really good discussion. I think we're getting back into business again after all that delay, and that's great to see that we're going to enter 2025 hopefully with a plan. So then our next item on our agenda for staff reports, Spencer has 9.2, and that is the meeting schedule.
Through the chair to the board, I have created a proposed 2025 meeting schedule for the OPP Detachment Board. It follows a similar structure to that the former Police Services Board does, where it meets the fourth Tuesday of the month in the morning at 9 a.m. in council chambers, with the August and December meetings being held at the call of the chair. I've also noted that the that the OAPSB Spring Conference and AGM is scheduled from June 3rd to 5th in London.
Thank you, Spencer. So assuming that the fourth Tuesday is still good for everybody to continue to meet, our CSPA requirements, as the report outlines, is that we have to meet at least 4 times, which we are obviously going to uphold. Is there any discussion on the proposed meeting dates? Everybody's good with them? Yes? Okay.
So moved.
So moved, thank you. So that would be Mayor Bailey. And seconded by Councillor Pierce, thank you. So that, all those in favor of that, please? That's carried. Now we can put the dates in our calendars for 2025. Okay, let's move on to 9.3. Again, we'll turn this over to Spencer for presentation and then we can discuss.
Through the chair to the board, this report is for recognizing former board members, looking for direction from the board of how, what process we would like to adopt to recognize former board members. So I did two options. Presentation of a certificate or presentation of a plaque. And just to note that the Police Services Board did do the plaques previously. Just looking for the board's input on this.
Before I weigh in, does anybody have any preferences? Councillor Pierce?
I think when Joan went off, we got her a plaque, right? I think that was nice. I think it's stick with the plaque. Nobody leaves, and we don't have to worry about it, right?
I agree with you, Councillor Pierce. I know we're a new board now versus previous, but it is nice to be consistent, and we have done the plaques in the past, and by no means is thank you is important for board members who have served. I just don't feel that a certificate is enough. It's nice, but I do like the plaque idea myself as well. Any other comments? We do have one person to recognize. Marty Verhey's term has finished on the board, so we would whatever we decide here, we would then proceed to do up for Marty, and we would find a time to have him in to recognize him for his service to the former Police Service Board. So it is timely that we figure this out. So hearing no other discussion, let's have a motion then from what I'm hearing for option B, that we would adopt the plaque as the mode of recognition for members who have finished their terms. Mayor Bailey will put that motion forward. Seconded by Member Brown. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Spencer, for putting that together for us. And I assume that we'll figure that out for... Okay, moving into items, communication items, section 10. We have information here from the OAPSB regarding the naming, board name and logos for the detachment board. This is just information from the OAPSB. We decided at our last meeting, we did the motion and everything, so this is just more for information for us. Okay. So we've sent that all in. We've got that all confirmed.
Through the chair, so bylaw 2402 today is the bylaw that will officially change the board's name. So once that, if that goes through and signed, I would then send it to the OAPSB and the other respective contact who requested to receive the bylaw, and that will confirm the new board's name as well as start the process for them to create the logo.
Great. My understanding from the OAPSB is that they're going to try and expedite boards like ours that didn't have too many changes or too many. Some of the other ones still are trying to figure that out with their names. We've been pretty clear on ours, so hopefully they can expedite that logo and that mark for us sooner rather than later. 10.2 in our package is the renewal notice for the Ontario Association of Police Service Board. as we noted earlier, the invoice is consistent with last year's amount. It's based on a property similar to what the municipal billing statement is. One thing that Member Brown and I did hear at the conference this past year was the need for the OAPSB to make sure that they are funded properly. There were some organizations perhaps that that will have an increase in their invoice. I think we aren't seeing that, but there's a lot of work that this organization can do, especially with the new act and with some of the work that they're doing, and they need to be adequately resourced to be able to do some of those things. So, but for us, I think we've got what we have here. I don't know, Cindy, is this something that we are for information today because it's going to be in the 2025 budget, or?
Yeah, through the chair, this is for the board's information, and it will be in the budget, so the board will have an opportunity to formally support inclusion of this when the board approves the 2025 budget.
Okay. Any discussion or questions, Member Boudreau?
Yeah, just so I understand that this is something that's optional. It's not actually mandated under the new legislation.
It's not mandated as a mandatory membership, but
Yeah.
it is something that we, Brant, and other groups have participated in. It's our provincial organization that works on our behalf for all police service boards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our lobbying group, in
That's right.
in essence, if you will. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I just I'm not against it.
Just
It's too early for me to tell one way or the other. I just want to know that it's something we can examine on a year-to-year basis and say, are we getting our money's worth out of this association? Thank you.
Member Brown?
Sorry, Madam Chair, my internet connection's been cutting in and out here a little bit. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place. The bylaws, it looks like we're going to be signing something 2401, and I just have a question for yourself and for Spencer as well. On in camera under 16, section 16, it lists a number of items, and I was looking to see if it was clarified in here that we could go into camera for training and educational purposes as well. And I could not find that in there.
Spencer's just looking right now. You're looking to talk about this now just because your internet's so not stable. Member Brown?
No, I was looking at it before, and I did not find there, or find it in there, and I was going to ask if it is included anywhere that I'm missing. I didn't know if I missed part of a discussion about that on the bylaws while I was out.
Through the chair to Member Brown. So on item 16.5 of the procedural bylaw, it states that a meeting of the board or of a committee of the board may be closed to the public if the following conditions are both satisfied. The first, the meetings to be held for a purpose of educating or training the members of the board or the committee, and at the meeting, no member of the board or committee considers or otherwise deals with any matter in a way that material advances the business or decision-making of the board. So it's encapsulated there.
Thank you very much. That clarifies it.
Okay, that's great. Let's carry on with section 11 here. Council communications. Councillor Pierce, anything you'd like to share with us that's happening, or?
Not a lot, I guess. There's been a couple of concerns brought forward regards to potentially how we can, or what we can do in the Alliance Park area to make it a little safer. I'm going to be starting discussions from a county side, and I know from an OPP side they've been engaged with a few things down there. So maybe we can broaden that communication just to see if between the county and the OPP, if there's anything that we can do to make that a little safer when it comes to nighttime. Other than that, not a whole lot, I guess.
Councillor Pierce, I was going to ask you, now that we're back as a detachment board, one of our priorities in the past was making sure we had touch points with council once or twice a year anyways. We now have requirements, obviously, with reporting in the CSPA, but we had planned before we were disbanded at the end of March to have gone in to do a presentation to council, I think spring and then late fall. And then, of course, we were in limbo there for quite a long time. Just looking for your advice or your suggestions, when you think that should happen in terms of getting back into that reporting routine.
Well, Madam Chair, I think, my take on that is I think it's a great idea. As far as I'm concerned, I think we tried to get it a couple times a year. I'm not sure if it's possible to potentially throw something together for the either December 10th Administration and Operations or December 17th Brant County Council meeting. But I think, with the timing of the renaming of the board, just and with the community groups and that sort of thing, and the changes that we've gone through, it might be a good time to come in and just update everybody as to what's changed, what hasn't changed, and kind of quickly our mandate going forward. So I'm not sure if that's too quick to get something in the next few weeks or so. But again, I'm always happy to have you guys come in and just give an overview of what's going on.
Great. We'll have to figure out the calendar. I don't know if December will work, but yeah, I just wanted to get your sense of timing and to get back in touch and get back into a regular routine there.
I think it's a great idea.
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, just to the board, just so the people that are watching this right now know that we've brought it up. Councillor Pierce and I were both approached about lack of policing on our Jingle Bell night, which we've talked it out with the inspector, and we understand how it happened. I just want people to know that we did bring it to police services like we said we would, and we're happy with the results of what we were told. It's an unfortunate evening as far as police services go or OPP go with our event, but we understand it and we got the right answers. So thank you, Inspector, for being on top of that for us and with such a responsible response. And it'll just be on record now that we've done what we said we would do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Yeah, the way we manage the communications works, and that's effective and important. Okay, so then if Councillor Pierce, if that's all you have for council updates, I'll move into Zone 4 just to give everybody a little bit of an update. Like us as a board, so for new members, OAPSB has a provincial organization, and then they have 6 zones across the province that they divide all the police service boards into. We're Zone 4, so it's a mix of OPP boards and municipal boards. We have the largest, probably, geographic region that we have to cover, everything from Niagara to Woodstock to Halton. So it's quite a swath, and we have several large municipal groups in there in addition to our OPP boards. So like us, when we were kind of held up in limbo, half of our Zone 4 is OPP, so it was a real struggle none of us were even appointed, so it was hard to do much for Zone 4. But happy to report that we're trying to get back up and organized again. And they've got some meeting dates for 2025 set in person, but our hope is to do some online as well because we do have such a large distance to travel for our group. And again, for information, these are held in conjunction with the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police that are also divided into zones, same zones. So Inspector Quenville is on the OACP Zone 4 treasurer now. You're on the executive now. So she's also in attendance at those meetings. Typically there's a breakfast meeting, a speaker, and then there's a time for each of the 2 groups to split out and chat and have some more discussions about the businesses of their organizations. My understanding is the OACP picks the dates, and they've picked dates that don't necessarily line up with my calendar, but they have picked dates in February, May, and September for in-person meetings. None of them are in Brant in 2025, so we don't have to budget anything for breakfasts or hosting anything in 2025. Off the top of my head, I believe the February meeting is in Niagara, and the May meeting is in Woodstock, and the September meeting, I can't remember, that's way too far away right now, but either way, that is, right now I'm the Zone 4 chair, trying to get everybody back up and organized. We'll see how that goes. But separately, we're trying to organize an information session with the OPP to talk about some of the new reporting templates and the detachment commander evaluation reporting template and some other things, so that all the OPP boards in our zone at least have an understanding of that. So stay tuned for more information on that. That's open for anybody to attend, all of, like, not just me, but all of our members to attend for information. Yeah, so hopefully we'll have some more coming through with that. Like I said earlier, I've reached out to OAPSB with regards to these funds from the sale of property, as I think that's been another oversight that we've been caught up in, just like the insurance and other things. So hopefully we get some answers on that. That's really all I have. So Zone 4, I believe there was a previous, probably a few months ago now, what other groups are in Zone 4 for OPP. So that would be Haldeman, Norfolk, Oxford, and Brant. And Oxford, I believe they had, correct me if I'm wrong, Inspector, 5 police service boards in the past, and maybe they're down to 2. I believe Ingersoll still stayed as a detachment board, and then the others, then maybe 3. I can't recall, but either way, they did shrink in terms of the number of boards in Oxford. So we have colleagues then close by, and that's a similar syndicate to what Inspector Quenville works with as well, with her detachment commander colleagues. So we've kind of been stalled with waiting for everybody's appointments, waiting for everybody to get back up and running. But I do believe there's opportunity for us within our Zone 4 to collaborate with our OPP counterparts in terms of some of the work that needs to be done and best practices. And there's no sense all of us working in silos and trying to do some of these things that we're required to do. So there is an opportunity there for us. And then the municipal services that are part of Zone 4 would include City of Woodstock, City of Brantford, City of Hamilton, Halton region, and Niagara region. So some pretty big services there. I mean, Brantford and Woodstock, obviously medium size compared to Halton region, Niagara region, and City of Hamilton. So there's a real challenge with the Zone 4 is that, probably unlike any other zones, is we have such a wide range of police services and needs, and what topics might be of interest to some people might not be of interest to others, and obviously the OPP's differences and municipal differences. So all that to say is that there's a lot going on. Hope that helps with some background to the different services that are in that zone. And then in terms of just segue into the chair, it's been pretty busy lately, I guess, but as we mentioned earlier already, we've got the dispatch ready to go. Just need to be able to press print and press send, and hopefully that, and then once that's out, that'll also go up on social, and that'll go up on the website for those that don't get it or that want it electronically, so it'll be available. So hopefully that doesn't get too long before we get that printed, because we don't want anything to be stale dated or out of date by the time it gets out. Tomorrow we have myself and Inspector Quenville and Cindy, I believe, are meeting with a new staff member that is working on the community safety and well-being plan. So a new person to Brant, well, new to us, but new in that role. So with this, and that's another thing you guys will make sure you guys get a copy of, is the community safety well-being plan that the county has produced. The time is coming up to update it and revise it, and that's now legislated, and it's part of the action planning process that is in the CSPA. So we're engaging with Brian to just understand better what they're looking at doing and what that timelines look like, and then we'll bring that back to the board as well. It's not our board's report, but we're obviously involved in it and have a vested interest in its successful outcome. And then lastly, I'll just note that I'd like to thank Inspector Quenville for inviting me. I went to the 56th Field Regiment, Artillery Regiment's mess dinner on Saturday night. It was a fundraiser for the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Holland. And so members from the 56th Field Regiment are going to the ceremonies in Holland in May. So it was a fundraiser, but we had the opportunity, Inspector Quenville and I, to sit with two of Brantford City, Brantford Police Services acting inspectors, which was a really good opportunity to just chat and talk and see some similarities between some of the issues that we're dealing with. And it was just a good opportunity, and all three of the officers were in their finest mess outfits, and it looked great. But it was just a good outreach. The members there really appreciated the uniform support from the police services. So I just wanted to comment on how great that was, that both Brantford and OPP were able to support that fundraising effort, not through the board's finances or the county's finances, on our own personal time. But I just wanted to comment on that. I think that's it for now, unless there's any questions. But we now need to move into, we don't have any in camera, but we will now move into the bylaws that we have listed here that we need to get done today. And there's a specific process for those of us that aren't familiar with how bylaws are done. Councillor Pierce and Mayor Bailey are probably very familiar with this. The rest of us, maybe it's new. So I'll let Spencer start.
Through the chair to the board. So for bylaws, and it's stated within our procedural bylaw itself that every bylaw shall be introduced upon written motion by a member, and any number of bylaws may be introduced together in one motion, but the chair, at the request of a member, may separate any of the bylaws. And additionally, every bylaw shall have 3 readings prior to it being passed by the board. The bylaw can be debated or amended during the second reading, and the third reading is the direction for the bylaw to be signed and numbered. The first reading would just be to introduce the bylaw. And bylaws may be considered and read at the first, second, and third time, and may be passed at the same meeting, or may be adjourned to a future meeting, depending on the amendments made.
So bylaw 2401 was in our package last meeting, which we had a chance to review. And then bylaw 2402 is the naming convention for the detachment board, which we discussed at the last meeting as well. And as Spencer noted earlier, this would be then what we would then send to OAPSB to request the appropriate OPP logo and naming banner. So this is new for me. I don't actually have to read them. So we're not reading them. But so the first motion then is that bylaws 2401 and 2402 are to be read the first time. So we need that motion for that. Councillor Pierce and Mayor Bailey, thank you. We just go from there. Yeah, okay. So any discussion? None? We don't do discussion on the first one. Okay, sorry, learning. And then let's call the question then on that. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. All right, so then the second motion that we would have is that bylaws 2401 and 2402 be read a second time, and that all preambles and clauses be adopted. Councillor Pierce has a motion. Sorry.
Madam Chair. Yeah, so I just want to clarify for Member Brown. So the question he had in regards to that one section of the bylaw, this is where he would discuss that. So if he's okay with the answer that was given there, then that's fine. But this is on the second reading. That's where it be discussed.
Do we discuss before the motion?
After.
Yeah, so we need a motion, right? First?
Yep.
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 So are you prepared? Did you have your hand up? Okay. Councillor Pierce for that motion then, and seconded by Member Boudreau. So to clarify, Member Brown, your point's been clarified in section 16. Okay. Anything else for discussion? Seeing none. Okay. All those in favor? And that carries. All right, so then third time, that bylaws 2401 and 2402 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed. Motion for that? Mayor Bailey, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Pierce? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. That was a learning process for me. Thank you very much. Okay, those are done, and that's, then Spencer will get that off to OAPSB. We now have, some guidelines and some structure around our meetings and our code of conduct and our governance, so that's great. That leaves us to the next date and time for our meeting. I'm gonna suggest that we just poll, maybe Spencer can do a poll. So we have a couple of options. We can either leave it to the 17th, which would be it's not necessarily the fourth Tuesday, but with the holidays and everything in there, we can do the 17th at 9 a.m. We can, Inspector Quenville will be on leave. We can, I'm assuming Staff Sergeant McTaggart might be able to attend.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah. I would, oh, sorry, Cindy?
Sorry, I just wanted to note, I am booked in labor negotiations all day on the 17th.
So the 17th might not work. The other thing I guess to consider is that at this time, the agenda would just be the budget. We don't typically do a detachment commander's report in December. So it would be a single item agenda with potentially just the budget discussions and deliberations. So we would need to then find an alternative date. And we could potentially do that on Zoom as well, right? Right. So maybe it's best if I just get Spencer to poll everybody, figure out Cindy's availability and Inspector's availability, and then we can just poll everybody for that special meeting in December. Does that make sense? I'm trying to look down and look up at the same time. Okay. That being said then, stay tuned for more information about when that next meeting date and time will be, but there will be something in December so that we can finalize our budget. And the only other thing, sorry, go, Councilor Pierce?
Sorry, Madam Chair, and I like what you said there in regards to the fact, if that's the only item we're doing, I think that, it might be easier for everybody if it is just a Zoom, right? As long as we got our quorum, and if that's the only item on the agenda.
I don't disagree.
That might be easier to do it.
Exactly. One other thing, I guess, just before we break, and I just want to seek clarification. So we are coming up to our holiday time. We traditionally had done that token of appreciation to each of the members in the detachment. We did have it in our budget as a police service board before we disbanded in March. Just looking for direction as to whether you would like that to continue for 2024, because if we're going to do that, we need to get cracking on that. I recognize that the two new members maybe aren't as familiar with that, but it's an opportunity to just provide a token of appreciation. A small, in the past, it's been a small piece of chocolate from a local a local business, a county business, and a letter from the board just wishing everyone well during the holidays and thanking them for their service. So if that is still good with everybody, just looking for direction and thoughts. You're good, Councilor Pierce? Yep.
I'm good with it. I think it's important.
Okay. So and Cindy, it's already sort of, it was in the previous police service board budget. It's sort of kind of, I don't know.
How can you go wrong with chocolate? Let's be real.
I would agree with that. A motion might be best. Spencer's nodding his head. Yeah.
For the direction?
Yeah.
Okay. So just for context.
I move that we continue to send a token of appreciation to all the frontline staff, as we have in the past.
Seconded by Member Brown. In the past, you guys have put a cap on that of no more than, I believe, $1,000, but yeah, I think it's been anywhere between $600 and $700 off the top of my head. Yeah. Are you okay with that cap being included in your motion, Councilor Pierce?
Sure.
Okay. And Member Brown, you're okay with that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of that motion? All right. That's carried. Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have done that sooner, but I just remembered. All right. With no further ado then, just want to note that we are ahead of schedule. For those of you that are wanting some time back in your day. We did manage to get through quite a lot. And Jim, Member Brown, I really appreciate you joining us from overseas and with the time change and everything else and Zoom challenges. So I do appreciate that. And then stay tuned for the next meeting date. And don't forget that if you have things for the budget that you'd like to be included, to make sure that they're sent out to everyone. And with that, have a great day, and we'll call that adjourned.
Have a great day, all. Mr. Mayor, see you tonight. Cindy, see you tonight.